Hello again, fellow spirit chasers, and thank you so very much for joining me on my long anticipated review of Absinthe. Note my green tie to give a little glory to the green fairy that we will be speaking about today. As you can see, we're in a new part of the house, and the basement project's taking a little bit longer than I expected, so knock on wood, this will be the last place that we review from. Where do I start? For me, it all starts in 2004, 2005. I saw a movie called Eurotrip that is a very slapstick, late teen, early 20s type of story. They piggybacked on the movie Road Trip, the American version, basically. And in a scene, I believe I think they're in Amsterdam when the scene's happening. They introduce Absinthe, and there's a cartoon, computer-generated little green fairy sitting on this character's shoulder, maybe both shoulders. And at that point, I was immediately intrigued, and I wanted to know more. That was before a smartphone, so I had to actually get in front of my PC, probably use dial-up and look into the spirit. And that's kind of led me to where I am today. By no means, let me start off by saying, by no means am I a connoisseur or expert on Absinthe. It is a very, very complex spirit that I am just scratching the surface on. That being said, I feel like I probably know more than most of you guys, so don't take that the wrong way. And because of that, I did put together a little cheat sheet, and this is in essence just to kind of keep me on the right path, because what I don't want to do is forget a very important point or two, and then have you guys kind of, sitting there scratching your heads. So I want to make sure this will kind of keep me on task and keep us moving. We're already, 2 minutes and 25 seconds in. As you know, if you've watched my other videos before in the past, tend to get a little long-winded, so get comfortable. Put on some, late 1800s, early 1900s French music, or maybe even a little Miles Davis, something very chill, something very relaxed, as we venture on our journey into Absinthe. So let's get started. Absinthe, many misconceptions, many rumors, a lot of propaganda thrown around. Absinthe is a very, very, like I said, misunderstood spirit. And that comes from one of the ingredients that is traditionally made in absinthe, that ingredient being wormwood. Wormwood, the botanical name for wormwood is Artemisia absinthium. Thus, we get the name absinthe. Absinthe was huge, like I said, later half of the 19th century, early into the 20th century, before it was banned in the U.S. starting in 1912. Really embraced by kind of the rebellious, fringe society who maybe saw themselves as some sort of artist, whether it be painting, whether it be writing, whether it be musical. Very, very bohemian, very, very, nonconformist types, socially, politically, you name it. They were kind of that edgy people who really embraced this and convinced themselves, whether it was a real creative juice, or if it was help me with the word. Anyways, the effect, placebo. Thank you, self. Whether it was a placebo effect or if there was actually something in the spirit that helped them with those creative juices, they believed it, and they swore by this stuff. Vincent van Gogh is a very, very famous user and an avid fan of absinthe, and as we know, he did lop an ear off. But some of that could have been because of the opium he was addicted to, or paint that he was known to actually ingest. But again, absinthe gets a lot of the bad rap, and we'll get into that. All right, So the huge producers currently of absinthe are France, Switzerland, and the U.S. And France and Switzerland were really the beginning producers of the spirit. And what they would really do, and this is how it all got started, it was a very, very low-income spirit from its roots. They would grab the wine from wine stores that were maybe close to going bad and gobble that up, and they basically had to get creative and very calculating on how they were going to make that palatable. So what they did was they started experimenting with infusing specific botanicals into the spirit until they found something that was drinkable, was okay on the palate. And by trial and error, they came up with absinthe. So basically, they took a wine. That wine then became a brandy. Then that brandy kind of became something else, just a very aged, bitter liquor. And they started to infuse it with wormwood, star anise, and fennel. Wormwood, star anise, and fennel. The wormwood, the active ingredient, if you will, is very, very, very bitter. The star anise is very, very sweet. To kind of, again, make this stuff drinkable, they need to kind of counteract the two, because the wormwood is so bitter, they need to add things to make that a little more of a pleasurable experience. Now, within that wormwood, there is an ingredient called thujone. Thujone, Thugone, thujone. That is the active ingredient that supposedly, at a high enough percentage, would actually cause hallucinogenic effects. Now, is there enough in any absinthe ever produced to cause hallucination? No, probably not. But that's where it all started. The green color, as you'll see, most absinthes, although they do have reds and whites, but most of the absinthes, your traditional French absinthes, have a very green, very minty green color. And that comes from basically the mashing of the chlorophyll in those herbs that we talked about. Wormwood, by the way, is actually so bitter that some people will use it to deter deer, because deer will try it and they ingest it and they don't want any part of that garden that it is in. So it is very, very, very bitter. Moving on. Where am I at? Oh, so French soldiers actually started to use this in World War I after, again, some of those fringe people were using it. And they would actually use it as a water purifier to help clean the water. So they came home and from the war, and they had this acquired taste. And that actually really helped boom absinthe into the mainstream. That's a little known fact you probably didn't know. So there are two methods of drinking it: the Czechoslovakian way and the French way. The Czechoslovakian way is where you put a sugar cube that I actually have right here. It's actually a specifically manufactured sugar cube for absinthe. It's a sugar cube. They put the sugar cube on top of this handy-dandy spoon, absinthe spoon with perforations throughout. It also has a very, very small ledge right here that allows it to comfortably sit on the glass here. So they would put your sugar cube on top of the glass, or on top of the spoon. They would then pour the absinthe over the sugar cube, and then because of the amount of alcohol absinthe has in it, that would become flammable. They would light the sugar cube on fire, drop it into the drink, and consume. The French version is what we'll show you, and is the traditional best way to drink the spirit. I talked about Eurotrip. Moulin Rouge is another pop culture reference point where you can find absinthe being very, very prevalent throughout. There's actually some really good examples of, again, that bohemian spirit and the bohemian way of drinking the spirit. So, why was it outlawed? In my opinion, it boils down to a few things. Propaganda, that coming from the wine producers and the cognac producers of the day, specifically in France. People that would use absinthe or enjoy absinthe were traditionally, like I said, those fringe members of society that they were kind of trying to hammer out, those artists, those alternative types of their day, and alcoholics and opium addicts. And notice I didn't say opiates, opium. They didn't have opiate, it was opium. So those people tended to have addictive personalities and issues as it was. So they really decided to demonize absinthe because it was becoming a formidable competitor for them at the time. So they wanted to stamp it out. So they launched this giant propaganda scheme, if you will, where they showed absinthe as this, devilish, spirit. They would actually show it oftentimes with the Grim Reaper, and there'd be posters, the Green Fairy got him, and things along those lines. Now there were, because of the boom in popularity at that time, there were some very sketchy producers of the spirit, just like there has been for many spirits throughout the years. But they were using copper sulfate, and that would actually cause people to go crazy. But those wine and cognac producers would basically demonize the entire spirit, telling people that it would make you lose your mind. Again, some of the opium users would also actually put opium on top of the sugar cube, and then they would ingest opium as well as the alcohol. This combined with the potency of the spirit, it's not something you want to mess with. So they would very much demonize it and make it something that would be very scary. So they begged and begged for the spirit to get outlawed. Like I said, it finally did. And in 2012 1912 in the U.S. it was illegalized in the U.S. and shortly thereafter in Europe became legal again in 2004, 2005 in Europe, and 2007 in the States. And since then, people want what they can't have. So people are infatuated and really curious about the spirit because of that, in my opinion. Where are we at? What else would I want to cover? Let's just jump right in. There are many ways to ingest absinthe in terms of breaking it down, water to spirit. I prefer roughly 1 part absinthe, 4 or 5 parts water. This is what they call an absinthe fountain. This one actually has 4 knobs that, as you adjust these little levers, very, very slowly water will drip down over the spoon into the sugar and then slowly dilute the absinthe, causing what they call a louche. And because of the essential oils in absinthe, the water solubility of that will separate that from the spirit, and it allows you to see that louche, and again, it becomes a very minty, opaque green color. So, let's just jump right into it now. Whew. Now, as you know, I'm traditionally a whiskey, rum type of guy. A little bit of vodka here and there. I'm going to try to show you that in the light. Very, very light green in coloration. Let me give you that white as a background. Very, very light green. Put this spoon with the sugar cubes on top. I will then put this in position and start while we do this, I'm going to zoom you guys in so you can take a look. I will then slowly start to loosen this up. There we go. Even a little slower. I don't want it quite that fast. That's about perfect. So what this is going to do, it's going to slowly, like I said, filter through that sugar and allow for a louche to form. So as we're talking, this will continue until we're kind of at that ratio where I think we're good to consume it. I'm already getting an overwhelming earthiness, black licorice aroma coming off of the glass. It's really incredible in that regard. You know me. What have I said many, many times throughout our reviews? I'm a what? I'm a realist. Do I need this fountain? Do I even need this spoon? Probably not. But it adds great theater. And I think that's what the Absinthe users at the time of its booming popularity were really all about. They didn't have much in terms of means, materials, that sort of thing. But they wanted an experience. They were artistic people to begin with. And they really felt that this was something that was almost magical, very mystical, very salt of the earth. So I think that they really embraced this, the theater of it, the fountain, the spoon, the louche, and all these. Could I have very easily just taken a little bit of water and slowly poured it in there? Yeah, sure. But it's about the experience. The sugar, this is something I didn't mention. The sugar was actually used originally just to really help make it less bitter. The fennel helps with that, but this really kind of finishes it off and makes it very much more palatable for the drinker. Okay, I think we're almost there already because it was kind of streaming pretty quickly on the way out. And it really is intriguing, and you're not going to be able to catch this on camera, so I'm not going to try to do it, but it does give a very eerie, smoky, as again, the botanicals are separating from the alcohol because of the introduction of water. Very, very smoky and mysterious looking. It, almost just by looking into the glass, your creative juices start to awaken, to aliven. It's really a beautiful spirit. Let's get right to the taste. So I'm just going to shut this off. Other direction, smart guy. Remove my spoon. I'm going to try to see if you guys can pick this up at all. Let me see if I can give you a nice little... I mean, isn't that very interesting? Smoky kind of... I mean, it almost looks like you're looking into some sort of like vortex. Like I said, night and day different from what I traditionally drink. On the nose, it is black licorice. That's the first thing you're going to get. And one step back. Lucid, by the way, was kind of they're the ones that kicked the door down in the U.S. market. They were the first ones available here in the U.S. It's also very, very, it's probably the easiest absinthe to find here in the States. It's midpoint price-wise in that $55, $65 range, which isn't cheap, but absinthe can get up in the $100, $150 range for the good stuff. There is stuff that's a little more affordable, but it's artificial. Artificially sweetened, artificially colored. This is not. This is the real deal. Some purists aren't a big fan. I mean, they follow all the recipe rules for a French absinthe, and again, it's very, very commonly available. So that's why I wanted to do this one. Sorry for the sidebar. Yeah, black licorice is there, earthiness. It's just, for lack of a better word, it's herbaceous. It's a Ricola cough drop, if you can feel me on that. On the taste. You're immediately hit with almost a numbing feeling in your tongue and gums. Like a menthol numbing feeling. And what I do know about absinthe is that once you have absinthe, especially if you don't dilute it enough with water, it's going to burn out those taste buds. What I mean by that is everything you drink from that point on is basically going to taste like absinthe. So I would suggest using it as an after dinner spirit or a nightcap. But be warned, as a nightcap, it is very, very potent. So it'll put you right to sleep. This one is 62% alcohol, or what is that, 124 proof. So it's no joke. Thus the dilution. But even diluted with water, it packs a wallop. And it almost gives, and I think this is where the artists kind of had their claims of this being a creative, medicinal spirit and qualities. And I've drank this several times, and I would say that it almost gives the user just, like I said, a moment of clarity. It's not that fuzzy drunkenness. It's you're very aware of your surroundings. It's very intense. It's a very focused buzz. And like I said, that with the tingling of the mouth, it enlivens the senses in many regard. Very, very unique. Unique is probably the best word I can use to describe absinthe. Yeah, I taste the fennel. Very, very interesting. Very potent. And I hope to you all that was very interesting. Very complex, very deep roots for a spirit. So I wanted to basically make sure we covered that appropriately. Didn't mean to get too highbrow with you guys, but I know it was a long-awaited review, and I hope I did the spirit at least I hope I didn't do it a disservice by my description in my review. But until next time, hazy green glasses up, and I will see you shortly from the new bar. Thanks for watching. And everybody, before I leave, subscribe below. Please, if you guys like what I'm doing, subscribe. That way you'll be notified when new stuff comes up. Thanks again.